Hey guys, welcome to Make You Remarkable, a brand new podcast brought to you by Oconee State Bank. I'm your host, JT Tomlin, and on this podcast, we're going to be talking all things leadership, entrepreneurship, and personal development. Our goal is to ignite purpose and inspire passion in our listeners by asking them the question, how will you make you remarkable? We'll be interviewing local legends, business owners, and leaders within our communities and asking them about their road to success. Like, what kind of steps did they take to get where they are now? What does it mean to be a leader? And how can I lead my team? As well as what kind of mark they've made and what kind of mark they hope to leave in the future. This is going to be an amazing podcast, and we cannot wait for you to listen to it. So make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and follow us on social media at Oconee State Bank for more information. Today, we're joined by a successful author, former professional athlete, and dynamic CEO, Rennie Curran. How are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. Glad to be on. Thank you all so much for having me.
Hey, it's our pleasure. So tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I always love to start with just my beginnings as far as my family and my heritage. Both my parents are Liberian immigrants who came in the early 80s, and my mom came here on scholarship to Emory to get her master's in nursing. And that's how we ended up here. And my father came after she was done getting her master's, and he eventually developed the skill of fixing shoes. Was my first example of entrepreneurship, and worked in a shoe repair shop about 12 hours a day out in Kennesaw, Georgia. For those of you all who are listening who are from Georgia, you know where that is. But I was born here in Atlanta. I'm as Atlanta as it gets. My mom worked at Grady Hospital, and that's one of the toughest places to work. But I went to daycare right there, right in front of Grady Hospital. Grew up in Gwinnett, went to Brookwood High School, achieved my dream of playing at University of Georgia, making it to the NFL, and now, post my playing career, have now delved into the world of keynote speaking, being an author, as you said before, writing my first book, which was all about navigating challenges and transitions. And then also I'm a certified coach as well, leadership and business coach. And none of that would have been possible without, like I said, my family, amazing leaders, and just people around me. You guys talked about how this podcast is about leadership, and that's really what my life is about. Just so many people who have poured into me, from coaches to chaplains to, the janitor at my high school. It's so many people, teammates, that have allowed me to be in the position that I am today. So when I talk about, my accomplishments, and different people will bring me on, whether it's to speak or to podcasts like this, they'll share about my accomplishments and different things. But really my story is more about the challenges and more about the things that I've had to overcome along my journey. And, and so anytime I get a chance to share, man, or provide that impact, that's what I'm all about.
Rennie, it's been a while since we've been able to, we've seen each other. I guess we've seen each other at some games, national championship games and things like that. But it's been a while since we've been able to sit down and chat. And, that was a little bit modest, what he said earlier, that he achieved his dream of playing at Georgia. He certainly did. But it was more grand than that. He was a standout at the University of Georgia. And
Thank you, man.
I remember being there. I can't tell you the year. You probably can. But I remember being at a game, sitting in the stands, watching, and I believe it was against South Carolina. I think you tackled somebody for a safety. Was it not?
Yeah, it was either 08 or 09. Both of those games I had goal line stops to help us win the game. It was
a goal line stop to help him win the game. And I remember Larry Munson saying, "There's a great Rennie Curran," stopped him. And so, but that was, I remember listening to that afterwards, after the game was over. But you did a great job. And then went on to play for the Tennessee Titans. In professional football. So how is football, kind of that experience, translated into what you're doing today? Talk about that a little bit.
There's so many transferables, and I love it. It's one of the things that wakes me up every single morning, just really being able to take my past and I call it not transition, but integrate it into where I'm at now. And so, and just going back to that, man, even to hear you say things like Larry Munson mentioning my name, it's just crazy, because I was a young kid who it was my dream. From 10 years old, I walked into that stadium, and that's where the vision really started. And at this time, I talk about this with people all the time. When you have this big vision and it looks nothing like your reality, it's one of the toughest things. And so at this time, family struggling. My dad had lost his business at that same time. Mom had just come off of surgery where she almost died. So it was just a lot going on. And then I was labeled undersized. So there's just all these different odds that I had to overcome. And when I think about now, all those things that I was able to overcome, those are part of my framework of what I talk about. So really starting with mindset. When I think about being that undersized linebacker who came who my first time at University of Georgia, getting in front of Coach Rick was at 15 years old. I got braces, and I'm 5'10", and I do not look like an SEC linebacker whatsoever. But just having that belief and that faith that I could one day get there. So starting with that vision and that mindset, I call it having a championship mindset. That belief that you don't know when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, but you're going to put in that work, that effort. You're going to have that growth mindset. And just believe that if I continue striving, if I continue improving, whether it's in the weight room, in the film room, whether it's, relationship-wise, your attitude, your character, that something good is going to happen. And
so not get complacent. Avoid complacency. Think about how do you get better every day.
That's it.
You talked about early on there that you are a certified business coach.
Yeah.
We had the opportunity, JT and I, to interview Coach Mark Richt on this same podcast just a little short time ago.
Yeah.
Talk about the impact that coaching.
Yeah.
Talk about the impact that he as a coach had on your life as a player, as a person.
Yeah.
That he shaped a lot of who you are today. Would you say?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, just seeing the example of humility. I think that's one of the most powerful characteristics that a true leader can possess is just that humility where, if you even, let's say you have a strategy, you have an approach, and it maybe doesn't go well. We see that all the time in sports. You have the humility to say, hey, it's on me. And just even the consistency in character, that's another strong thing that I learned from him. So whether we're up, whether we're down, Coach Rick was the same person. He's the same person whether you see him at an event or whether you just see him one-on-one. He's going to take that time to stop with you and talk to you like a human being, not like he's up here or he's this grand person. So just that down-to-earthness that he showed, man, and how he cared about people, how he lived his life, not just with words but through his actions, how he treated his wife, how we would be at practice and we would see his kids walking around. Like there were guys on my team who they didn't have that father figure, and so he was that father figure and that representation of what a man who cares and loves his family, loves his wife looks like. And so those things were so powerful, and it went way beyond the X's and O's. And now as a man, it's like you have somebody like him to look towards and still call, right? Like how many people that when you're not doing business with them and when you can't add value to them, you don't know if you can call them or if you invite them to something, whether they're going to show up. Coach Rick is that guy who will show up. And
so that's translated into probably how you think and coach yourself today.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. How I father my daughter, how I coach others, how I approach people, whether they can do something for me or not. So much of that has come from him, and so many coaches that I've been coached by. Another guy I think about is Coach Jancic, who's my linebackers coach, who, most people, they know about Coach Rick, but Coach Jancic was that guy who I met with every single day. So when I'm done meeting with Coach Rick, I'm getting in the film room with Coach Jancic. And I think about this all the time, like what would your life look like if you had somebody you met with every single day that held you accountable? Even if you had a great day, right, who was sitting there and you had that camera that was following you around. So he's sitting with you with that camera and he's saying, okay, why did you see how you step right here? Did you see how you move right here? Did you see your body language? Where would we all be if we had somebody like that? And so that's one of the things that I miss being an athlete, is having that daily accountability. I mean, I'm talking about we're watching film before practice and after practice and everything, and it's always about that constant improvement. And that's one thing, you're never going to be in that position where you can get comfortable, because even after the South Carolina game, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of my best games ever. I'm coming back in Monday morning, and we're breaking that thing down, and I'm still walking away with some type of feedback that I can use to improve, and I think it's so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. JT and our marketing team, largely JT, helped come up with the Make Your Remarkable podcast, which this podcast is really about making your mark on the world and making your mark in the communities, making your mark on your families, and a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. And, you know, we first met, I think, through the Fellowship of Christian Athletes at University of Georgia.
Yeah.
And appreciate your support of that organization, and Thomas Settles, who I think has made mark on a lot of people, a lot of players, and what a great man he is.
Definitely.
But take a second and talk about the mark that you would like to leave on, you know, in your life and on others, and spend some time telling us about that.
Man, you know, I talked about the different things that I do, but one of my most important jobs is being a father. And, you know, that's one of the marks that I want to leave is on my child, my daughter, like just making sure she's a strong woman of faith, that she's a woman of character, that she carries herself with confidence and really just believes in herself. And so everything that I do, man, when I wake up in the morning, I know that, you know, I want to be a great role model for her. And then for those who look like me, you know, young black males, athletes, just to know that they're more than their title. Right, like you don't have to be defined by your performance. You don't have to be defined by your rankings and whether you get a scholarship or not. Knowing that God has created you to be so much more, that's something that wakes me up in the morning. Kids in my family's home country of Liberia, and in third world countries around the world where, you know, they may never get an opportunity unless somebody helps to create one for them. You know, just man, leaving that mark. You know, being able to do something.
Mark.
Yeah.
So that's a legacy.
Yeah, legacy mark, man. That's what really I'm trying to leave. And those I talk a lot about finding your fuel. And that's what fuels me, man, every single day. And honoring all the people that sacrificed for me, like my parents, you know. Like I said, guys like Coach Rick, my Little League coach, you know. Guy who took me in my first game at 10 years old. I mean, there's so many people that I want to leave a mark for because they deserve it. My pastor, he passed away last year. Man, it's so many people and you know, that I represent, man, who I stand on the shoulders of. And so, yeah, when I think about leaving my mark, like that's it, you know, all those things.
Well, yeah, and we talk about almost generational marks, like how Coach Rick talked about Bobby Dowden?
Yeah.
Dude, I should know his name.
Yeah,
don't
tell anybody you don't know that name.
We're gonna cut that part out.
That's a legend right there. Can't play it.
But Coach Bowden, you're right, JT. Coach Bowden.
He left his mark on Coach Rick,
who
then left his mark on you, and now you're leaving your mark on your family.
Ripple
and
effect,
the people under you.
Multiplication.
Oh, yeah. That's I feel like that's so powerful because we don't think about that a lot of times as leaders and just as people as in general, that our actions, our decisions have ripple effects. And, man, I see it now more and more where it's like I'll be at a random place, at a Walmart, at a Dave & Buster's, just hanging out, and somebody will walk up to me and say, Rennie, like, you said this to me 5 years ago, you know, at an event. I literally had people come up to me and just say that, and I'm here now. Like, I remember what you said.
Yeah.
And it's like, who are they impacted now? It's crazy to think about. But, yeah, I mean, Coach Rick and those who impacted him before, and you think about so many coaches and their coaching tree and just the philosophies that they picked up, some of them good, some of them not good.
Yeah.
But, it really does impact us. And so much of our identity as athletes and as people in general are formed by the leaders that we have in our life and how they speak into us. And that voice, you know, whether it's our parents, our coaches, whoever, that voice becomes our inner voice. And it impacts, you know, so much of what we believe and how we see ourselves, our self-identity. And it's just a powerful thing to think about that I really try to be intentional about.
So I'm curious because you teach a bunch of other people with whether it's your companies or just even like your family, like you're saying.
Yeah.
What are some lessons that you've learned that you've really passed on to those people and really focused on teaching people how to make their mark or really making an impact?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many lessons. And one of the things that I try to do is I make sure that what I do teach and the principles that I present are relevant to that organization. So I make sure that my approach, and this goes back to one of the lessons that I learned as an athlete, preparation. So I approach speaking to a company the same way I would have approached preparing for Tim Tebow or, Julio Jones. I make sure I study that organization. I understand what their vision is, what their values are, their mission. And I'll go in there and I'll quote their mission statement. I was like, before I quote it, I'll say, what's y'all's mission statement? What's your vision? And most of the time, a lot of the employees or leaders in the room can't even quote their own mission statement. And so I'll make sure that I go in knowing their organization better, almost sometimes better than they do, or they're understanding their industry and their patterns and their tendencies. And that's one of the things I love to do as a linebacker. But yeah, in terms of principles, one of the things that I love to talk about is the importance of preparation. So I call it winning the game before the game. And I think every leader knows that, like, it's what you do before the big meetings, before the big deals are closed, before the quarter starts or the year begins that actually sets you up to win. So that's just one of the principles that I really love to talk about and make sure that, like I said, it's relevant to their organization. So I'm using their same terminologies, whether it's their KPIs, the things that really let them know that they're winning and that they're on the right track. And so that's something that I think every organization can learn from and really can focus on. Another thing I talk about is operating at the level of your vision. So every company has a vision, right? But what does that look like in terms of the day-to-day, the behaviors, the mindset, how you treat each other? Does the culture reflect the vision that you have? So all those things are, just different principles that I use. And I'm a constant learner. So I'm always, learning new principles, coming up with new ways to really try to move the needle for the different businesses that I work with.
Yeah, and kind of going off that, you said you're a constant learner. What are some of the biggest lessons you learned from your time in the NFL and your time in college athletics?
Man,
Athletics.
One of the biggest lessons I learned is you can never ever get comfortable. That's directly relatable to business because we've all seen it. The companies that were killing it, Blockbuster, whoever, and they're gone, and they were booming. I mean, everybody can remember going to Blockbuster on a Friday night, getting your movies, and plenty of other companies, right, that are like ghosts now. And that's one thing.
Complacency is the enemy of excellence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's one thing I learned as an athlete. I don't care how good you are. Like when I came out of high school and I, had my records and all those different things, and I walked into that locker room at Georgia and looked around, humility.
Yeah.
It was humbling. And then when I left Georgia and I was 3-time All-American and Buckets Award finalist and Vince Dooley MVP, and then I walked into the NFL locker room, humbling. Yeah. Every level I had to humble myself and like literally start over and be a student every single day. And so that's one of the greatest things that I took away from it, man. That and just that preparation piece, where you're winning in the off season. So like holidays, where everybody's chilling, getting gifts. I'm preparing long before the year starts. I'm getting ready to dominate. So just some of those things, man, that are really, really powerful.
Well, it's humbling hearing you say that because your career has already been super successful and you already have so much success looking for you to achieve in the future. And for someone like me who's just starting my career, hearing that where like it's already humbling being in such a great bank where you're like, whoa, all right, I'm learning so many different lessons every single day.
Yeah.
But the second you feel comfortable there's already a billion more lessons for you to learn.
Oh, yeah.
To understand that like every room you enter, there's more to learn and to go into it with the mindset of, all right, I'm not the biggest guy in the room, just learn from people. It's a really great mindset to have.
I believe it was C.S. Lewis who said humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less.
Yeah.
And I think when you think of yourself less, it helps focus on the external, which constantly forces you to think about, what do I need to do to get better? But you don't become resting on your own laurels because you're right. That's when you begin to decline. And we talk about that in our bank. It's a culture of excellence is really important. I think about, your speaking opportunities and such. How do listeners, if they want to book you, what do they need to do?
So the easiest way is through my website, renniecurran.com. And when they go on there, the first thing they'll say is a button that says Book Rennie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it'll tell you more about just the messaging and the topics that I speak on. But that's the easiest way to get in touch with me. And then also, I connect with tons of people through LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram as well. So if you message me, I will message you back.
That's great.
I love connecting with people, man. And it doesn't have to be a huge audience. I've done 1,000 people, but I've also done small leadership retreats where I'll just go in. I've done Q&As and fireside chats where we're just sitting and they're asking me questions. So, yeah, I really, like I said, just try to add as much value as I can to any organization that I work with. And my philosophy is I want to approach and deliver just as if they're paying me $1 million.
Well, we've had Rennie at our bank, and we've also we're going to have him back. And I would encourage all of you to if you get an opportunity to book him, do that. That would be great. And by the way, he talked about Tim Tebow, and Tim Tebow is a really good guy. But I saw a picture where Rennie Curran, he leveled Tim Tebow in one particular game. Man.
I was gonna throw my whole body at you. That's one thing. I look back at it now, and I'm just like, man, I'm blessed to still be able to walk around and still be able to do that, because I literally was just a human torpedo when I played. I would just,
that was right.
Yeah,
that's a good photo. Tim Tebow's a good guy off the field, but I'd love to see him on his backside with Rennie on top of him after that tackle. But,
What you're saying is we totally need to put that up right now. I'm talking about that.
We should just flash it up right here on the podcast. Yeah, there you go. You can do that. So,
yeah, it was some fun times, and the beauty of it is you can do things like that and not feel it. You feel it, but not as much as now. Like I can't imagine going that. I would try to take that guy's head off. Like we laugh about it now, and everything, but it was intense. So.
Yeah. Now you keep yourself in good shape. So you still work out every day?
Still work out, man. Like I really, and that's part of that championship mentality that I talked about. And it's not just trying to be a champion in terms of your profession and how you do your job, but in every area of life. And that's something that I strive for. And so, I still have my speed ladder, speed and agility ladders that I pull out of my gym bag and go in the gym. And I still, and I don't go as high as I did as far as on the bench and things like, 400 plus, because I'm not taking on those big offensive linemen, but I still stay around 300.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I just
get. You should have seen my face when you said 400. I just went, whoa.
I think I could. Man, I could maybe get 265. That's about it. So
now I'm still in the 300s and everything, good. Man. And my mindset is just to maintain that strength, man, and that mindset. So when I go in there for that hour, I'm going hard. Like I'm getting on that treadmill and I'm sprinting, and I'm doing the drills that I used to do when I played. Not everything, but just things to keep me in that same kind of
championship mentality.
That championship mentality. And that translates for me over to entrepreneurship, because when I wake up in the morning, it's just me. Nobody's giving me a paycheck. I got to go hunt. I got to go get it.
Yeah.
And so training like that, man, it keeps me in that same mindset, and it helps me face challenges as well, because when I hit that 315 or when I don't hit that 365, it still gives me that and then I come in that next day and I do it. It gives me that resilient mindset. Like it really trains your mind to be able to bounce back. Because I hear no after no after no, even still to this day. That was another thing you asked me about, lessons I took from playing. When you get knocked down, and I don't care how good you are, you're gonna get those welcome moments, is what I call them, where you get laid out, like, and it comes out of nowhere. And the same thing happens in business. No matter how good you're doing, you're gonna pick up the phone and you're gonna call somebody. They're gonna be like, "Nah, we don't need your service. Sorry." And you're gonna hear that a lot of times. So having that mentality, man, it really helps me to get up each and every day and still believe that I'm gonna win.
So, Rennie, talking about championship mindset and the mindset that you got to consistently get better, and you got to think about the next day, the next game, or the next business deal, or the, everything you're doing in a business, the next steps, whatever it may be.
Definitely. So
talk about this, though. How do you effectively not lose sight of the present or not celebrate the past? How can you do those two things, stay in the moment but also celebrate the past, while at the same time having this mindset of excellence. Because I think a lot of times companies feel, or maybe their team members feel like, well, gosh, it's never good enough, or I got to strive for more, and that kind of thing, which, you want to have a championship mentality, because the minute you get complacent is the minute you start declining. But at the same time, it's important to stop and celebrate success. And it's also important to think about, like, gosh, look how far we've come.
Exactly.
So talk about how you've been able to do that, not only in sports, but also in, in business.
Yeah. I mean, it really, you have to take an intentional approach to doing this, because like you said, if you do one more than the other, either one can knock you off your game and make you forget what got you there. And you see that so many times with leaders, with companies. When things are bad, they tend to lock in to focus on where they need to do to get out of there. But the minute things go well and they have a great quarter or a great year, they get complacent, they let things slip under the rug. And so I truly believe it has to be a balance where you are definitely focused on getting to the next, attacking deadlines and objectives and goals. But at the same time, you are stopping, whether it's weekly, whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly. I believe in weekly. But you're taking that time to review. This is what's working. These are the behaviors that are leading us to the results that we want. This is what we want repeated, and really acknowledging and appreciating those around you. And that's something that we did, man, that I believe was so powerful when I think about how things that I did as an athlete applies to the business world. But every week after each game, or, going into that week, coach took the time to stop. And he would acknowledge those guys, even the ones who weren't necessarily the contributors that everybody would acknowledge, the newspapers would write about. This from the scout team players to the media to the trainers. He would acknowledge everybody and appreciate them. And it would just build that morale and that camaraderie that we needed to move forward. And so I try to do the same thing personally with myself. I'll sit down on a Sunday and I'll review my entire week. And I'll write down all the wins, the good things that happened. But then I'll write down the areas of improvement. What goals didn't I reach? How do I need to improve this week? And that's something small that you could do with yourself personally as a leader, and then also with your team. You can do the same exact thing. It takes, an hour to do.
If you just write all the successes down and don't talk about what you could have done better,
exactly,
that's where the, complacency sets in, and you don't have that championship mentality.
And the humility, like you were talking about. A good leader is humble and able to help lead his team.
Yeah, and the three components that I like to talk about when it comes to having a championship mindset is, number one, having a growth mindset. And that's that belief that, regardless of where you are today, that you can get a little bit better. That's, accepting feedback and knowing that it's not there to tear you down, but it's there to build you up, and being inspired by the success of others and not threatened by the success of others. And then the next thing is having a servant mentality. That's another component of having a championship mindset. They know that it's bigger than them. They're about win-win opportunities. They're there to serve and not to serve themselves. And then the last piece is that mindset of understated excellence. Yeah, whenever you think about somebody who's a champion or has a championship mindset, or organization like yours, they don't have to say much. When you walk into their establishment or you're around them, you know that they represent excellence. And it doesn't have to be somebody who's in a big CEO position. This could be a waitress, a truck driver, a bus driver, somebody who may not be in that position that's highly paid, but the way that they conduct what they do lets you know that, man, they have pride in what they do. They represent excellence. So those are like the three things that I think about when it comes to the championship mindset: growth, being a servant, and understated excellence.
I just experienced that at a hotel I stayed at just recently, just the consistency of service, and they cared about what they do every day. You could just tell. That's good stuff.
So kind of going off of what you were just saying, all of those lessons that you've learned, who are some people in your life that have really taught you those lessons? Like, who are some mentors that really impacted you?
Yeah, without a doubt, my parents, man. Like I mentioned them earlier, but just the things that I saw them do for so many people in our community, in the Liberian community, was just so powerful. Like, just being a young child and, knowing that, or starting to learn that at an early age, that there was a civil war that was taking place in our home country of Liberia. And this is a country of population 4 million, if that. But over 400,000 people lost their lives. And seeing my parents step up in the way that they did, our home was always open. Food was always cooked, like there was nobody who couldn't come from our family or extended family that wasn't able to get a room for 2 months to 2 years. I'm just like, Mom, Dad, y'all way better people than me, because I don't know if I can let, but just amazing, humble people who just worked hard, believed in God, and just did their best, even in being in a situation where they were trying to figure it out. So that was like one of the most powerful examples, and really shaped my perspective and how I view the world and view people. And then, like I mentioned, my Little League coach, this man just literally, for whatever reason, took me in like a son. And I tell people this all the time, like, who does this? He had his own son, his son played quarterback, I played running back, but not only would him and some of my other Little League coaches pick me up every single day for practice, but he took his son and me, and he paid for me to get trained by a guy by the name of Chip Smith, who happened to train Brian Urlacher, Champ Bailey. I mean, the top name, like basically invented pre-draft training. I got to go there at 14, 15 years old, and walk around and look at NFL jerseys and do the same training that they did. Like, who does that?
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, just people like that, man, that really, they didn't have to, but they did it. And they went beyond their title.
Yeah.
So I think about the teacher who just, beyond teaching me, they would meet with me early in the morning, and they were not just my teacher, but they were also my counselor. That, when I was going through things at home, they would just speak life into me and say, like, Rennie, you're a leader. Like, you can do so much more. Like, just those little things that went beyond what they were paid to do. Like, those are some of the things that made the mark on me.
Yeah, you talk about humility, and that word, I think a lot of people talk about it. A lot of folks don't live it. We always say, you talked about the vision mission, we always say that what's on the walls, we want to be lived in the halls. We want those things to come to life in the halls. Remind me again when you played at Georgia. What years?
It was 07, 09.
07, 09. So I don't know how familiar you are with this, but the 2000 UGA team was arguably one of the most talented teams Georgia ever had, but they went 8-4. And when you go back and dissect it, I've had some insiders tell me that those players at the time, they were playing for themselves and not for the greater good of the team. Whereas, you look at maybe even the recent years that Georgia's had, the last couple of years with 2 national championships and all that, you see a degree of selflessness that, Darnell Washington's blocking for Brock Bowers and celebrating in the end zone. It doesn't matter who scores a touchdown. It matters about the team winning.
Yeah.
And so I think that takes humility, right?
Oh, I mean,
particularly for athletes, because,
definitely.
For all of us, for anyone, but particularly for athletes that, want to make the play, want the spotlight many times, and but it transcends beyond a personal goal to a team goal, and if it means I'm doing an X job to help the team achieve that, I'm just as happy as if I'm the one who gets the glory and the spotlight. So,
oh yeah, without a doubt, it's humility, it's belief, it's love, it's faith. So many of those things. And I think a lot of times, whether it's sports teams or in the corporate world, the mistake that a lot of organizations make is they promote people based off their performance and not necessarily their character and their ability to lead. You see this all the time in sports teams. They'll promote somebody in a leadership position because they make a lot of plays and because they're a senior. But it doesn't necessarily mean that talent and that ability translates into leadership and your ability to be humble and to inspire others and to encourage and speak into somebody's life. And I think the more that teams and leaders of organizations can really not just look at that person's performance and, how they're affecting the bottom line, but also their character, their consistency in terms of their attitude, and when things don't go their way, those intangibles, I think that would make a huge difference in the overall.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Kind of one thing I want to ask you about is some of those challenges that we've talked about a little bit. How do you let the challenges you face kind of make a mark on you, but not really overcome you or take you out of the game per se?
Yeah, I really believe it starts with reflection. So when that challenge happens, do you take that time to sit down and reflect on how that challenge not only may have impacted you or the feeling that you have, but also how it may have helped you? What are the things that you gained from that challenge, that obstacle that you went through? What is it teaching you? What is it telling you about yourself in terms of ways that you can improve or things that you need to change or people that you don't need to have around you? You know, so there's so many lessons that you can learn from that challenge. But if you just caught up in the emotions and just the ego of, man, I can't believe this happened. Man, I can't believe that so-and-so rejected me or they talked to me this way, then you miss out on the bigger lessons that obstacle will teach you. And then another thing that I believe is huge when it comes to not letting those obstacles create scars and really damage you is things like empathy and grace. You know, so when you take the time to step back, let's say you have a big confrontation with somebody and you don't have that time to reflect and then focus on empathy and grace, you're looking at that person like, man, I'll never talk to him again. I can't believe they're like this. But when you take the time to have empathy and ask yourself, what maybe were they going through that caused them to act this way? And you take the time to understand instead of just react and respond and judge. Then maybe when you have that conversation, you may learn, man, they just lost their mother or something, right? They're going through something that you can never imagine. And all of a sudden, that empathy leads to the grace to say, man, even though we had this bad conversation, man, I'm going to give you the grace to still try to build with you, still try to understand your situation and put myself in your shoes. And it completely just changes your whole perspective. And it actually it helps you, it benefits you to not have to walk around with that hate and that hurt and that frustration and everything. So it's just so, yeah.
Wow, you got me rethinking like all of these confrontations that I've had.
Right, think about that.
Oh my gosh.
Right,
yeah.
when you just come across somebody, they're just angry and you're just, what's wrong with, like, why do you act like that? Like, and you know, you all of a sudden you take that time, like I said, just to understand. And it goes such a long way. And I feel like so many relationships will be, so many families, so many organizations will be a lot better if that approach was taken.
Yeah, where's a great, that really speaks out to me. So like where was that lesson learned? Like, you might not remember, but like,
oh man,
it's such a big lesson to really understand.
I'm learning that every day. I'm learning that every day. And I'll tell you, man, even like my father, that was one area that, when it comes to reflection and empathy and grace, like I really had to practice all those things and still am. And I'm teaching him how to do it. Like this stuff is generational. My father didn't meet his father until he was 30, till he was around my age. Wow. And so he carried a lot of hurt, a lot of frustration. People said things that did things to him because of the hurt that they had inside. But of course, when you're young and you experience these things, you internalize it as these people were actively trying to tear me down and hurt me. And, you know, and he did certain things that hurt me. Like, you know, the fact that he was trying to, and you see this with a lot of leaders, you're trying to work hard, you're trying to make up for what happened. But as a result, you don't realize that you're not giving all of yourself to like your children. So, for example, he spent 12 hours a day and, you know, working, building his business. As a result, wasn't able to come to my games, wasn't able to really be active, didn't have his father in his life, you know, so his main goal was just to be there. That's his thing. I'm going to just be here and I'm going to just provide. But when it came to engagement, when it came to actually like, you know, spending time and actually those conversations, he didn't know how to give what he didn't have, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I had to really reflect and I had to have empathy and ask myself, okay, what was my dad's experience like as a child? What were the things that he didn't get, right? And so just having that empathy and grace allowed me to be able to give that grace to my father and still have that relationship with him, still be able to pour into him. And then when it came to his hurt, because my dad is now 68 years old and still hurting, it's like I was able to communicate that to him that, hey, Dad, what was your dad's experience like? What did he go through that caused him to feel like he didn't need to be in your life?
Yeah, it's not like you're saying, it's not a lesson that you have to learn when you're young.
Right.
You can be learning when you're 68 years old.
Exactly. So he had to go back and be like, man, that's true. Like his dad also was not, you know, my father's father was also not there for him and hurt him. And so a lot of these things are just hurt being recreated. Like they say, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
So it's deep, man.
Yeah, that's really deep and powerful. And I guess it's impacted how you father your daughter.
Exactly.
Know, and being there and integrating work and life together. And it's so important. And then you mentioned Coach Rick. You know, one of the impressions he had on you was seeing his family there, even though he had a job and the SEC head coach is a grueling job. He took time to get his family in the facility, whatever it may be. They were there to share that time. But that's pretty powerful. You have a foundation.
Yes,
you started. Tell us about that. What's the name of it, and kind of how did it get started?
Yeah. So the foundation is called the Game Changers Foundation, and we exist to provide resources to student athletes to help them become leaders in sports, business, and life. And we do that through mentorship and leadership development. And really how that came about, man, was I thought about my own journey. Like I said, just so many people who mentored me. I had guys like Jesse Tuggle and Ray Lewis and Thomas Davis. You know, when I first got here as a freshman, he took me under his wing. And, you know, even before that, a guy by the name of Stevie Baggs, who played at Bethune-Cookman and who I met at Brookwood High School literally a week before I went to University of Georgia. He was on the track training, and I just walked up to him, you know, humility, and I just asked, hey, can you show me some drills? You know, he's doing linebacker drills, and I just asked him. We've been friends ever since.
Wow.
So at the age of, you know, I'm 18 years old, and through all those guys, I'm getting knowledge of the pros. I'm meeting their agents. I'm meeting their chiropractors. I'm meeting, you know, business leaders that they work with. So I was already ahead of the game and had that access and everything. And I feel like so many, whether it's athletes, non-athletes, they're not able to reach their fullest potential because of lack of access, lack of mentorship, lack of, you know, just simple resources because of their location and whatnot. And so that's really what we try to do with the Game Changers Foundation. We provide the free camps and everything so they get that experience of being able to work one-on-one with current and former athletes. But at the same time, one of our biggest initiatives is to provide, like I said, that one-on-one mentorship, so that it's not just them coming in and doing a skills camp and then they go home. You can always learn drills and those different things. But what I'm really hoping to do in the future is be able to have them earn that experience of doing the drills and the physical work. I want them to come in with suits on or you know, dresses on day one, business casual, and you're learning about other things outside of sports. So you're learning about personal branding. You're learning about financial literacy. You're learning about alternative careers in sports. So you're not just thinking that I have to be an athlete and that's it.
Well, the thing is that I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I know that you're a very, very rare, I mean, to have played at Georgia,
right,
and then to go on to the NFL and you know, make a mark in the NFL. I mean, that is a very there's only a few people.
0.08%.
Yeah. Now, what's the percentage?
It's like 0.008%, and I'm in the negatives.
0.008%.
Yeah, I'm like negatives, like 1,000 or something.
I mean, a very rare. Yeah. So, you know, I would think a lot of these athletes, you know, they're good, and you're talking about being humble, but they come up and they've been in Pee Wee football or whatever. They've always been dominant.
Yeah.
You know, even in high school, they're dominant. They get recruited. They get to a SEC school, you know, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh! After a couple of years, well, I'm not good enough to make it. I mean, and it may cause an identity crisis, right?
Always.
So you're part of your foundation, I'm guessing, helps them to avoid that. To say, look, your self-worth isn't, because even. What's the average career in the NFL, even if you make it?
4 years.
I mean, so there's something. It's coming to an end one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so I guess there's a transition into real life and learning other skills, like you said, that transcends beyond just, you know, being an athlete.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I think one of the mistakes that's made in sports, especially youth sports, is there's so much of a focus placed on, once again, performance. You know, if that kid's not a starter, they feel like they have lost. If they don't get a scholarship, you know, it just never ends. It's an ongoing. Self-worth
is all wrapped up in
that. It's all wrapped up in external things that a lot of times, the farther you go, the less control you have over it. And when I going back to what I said about reflecting on the challenges and your experiences, I think one of the biggest things that's missed is the teaching opportunities when it comes to youth sports, in terms of the intangibles and how it translates into the rest of your life, into the business world. I really believe that should truly be like fundamental to every youth lead, that you sit that child down and you say, hey, what you're doing right now is team building. What you're doing right now is leadership. What you're doing right now is mindset, resilience, all those things that they can take with them. So when they lead that sport, or when they're going through the season and they're sitting on the bench, then they're not thinking to themselves that, man, I'm of no value to this team. This experience is of no value to me. When in reality, that's one of the greatest lessons in life is delayed gratification, which everybody's talking about that now. You see what I'm saying? So I feel like coaches, if you're a coach listening to this, you're literally a coach, whatever, take the time to teach that child the true value of their experience, not the touchdowns, not the championships, but those intangibles and those transferable skills.
Possibly it could have a big impact on their mental health. Because I know youth today, that's one of the biggest challenges is you get a lot of, issues, and that's not as prominent to talk about as a physical injury, but if you've got a mental health issue that is a result of being deflated or feeling deflated or your self-worth's there and it turns into suicide, all sorts of terrible things.
Yeah.
That type of coaching early on can prevent a lot of that. So.
I agree 100%. And just to add to that, because having a 14-year-old now, my daughter, like I said, that's one of my most important jobs, and that is something that we talk about. I mean, almost every single conversation we have is, hey, how are you mentally? I mean, youth these days, they deal with so many more challenges than we had to face. I couldn't imagine being 13, 14 years old and literally being judged by my outfit. It was one thing to be judged, when you go to school and, hey, you wore the same outfit, but you didn't have a whole platform that literally there's numbers and analytics that to judge if your joke was funny or if your outfit is cool or not. So these are very real things, and we know how serious that is in those years and how brutal they can be at that age as well. So my job is also building up, and I feel like every job as a parent should be building up that child's identity and their mindset and really helping them understand that these things do not have to define you. You should never let a number or likes or, anything from the external to define you and who you are.
So kind of continuing what you were saying about just the influence of social media.
Yeah.
Like that's my generation, definitely a Gen Z. I tell people that I'm a digital native. Like I know nothing other than social media. And the first iPhone came out. Wow, I'm really going to date myself. 3 years after I was born.
Oh, wow.
So it was 2005, right?
Did you get one at 4?
What? No, my parents were like, no, you don't get any technology until you're like married. That didn't happen.
Right. Sounds good.
But I mean, listening to what you're saying, it's so true. I grew up in the environment, like high school, we all know it's a really interesting place because you're in one environment with so many different types of people, and the value of a like or the value of a comment it's crazy. And it really does define your identity. You have people now with TikTok going viral at the age of 12, and just the amount of not trauma, but stress that puts on a kid. And even the fact that all of your validation is coming from people that aren't even you can't even see them. It's all remote. So then you might have 50,000 followers on TikTok, but one friend.
Right. That is the thing that's, I think, one of the most alarming things is because it does paint that illusion of connection, which I call it's like the illusion of connection, the illusion of relationship, the illusion of community. When you have all those followers, but you go out into your real life and you're lonely as crap. I don't know what the statistics are, but I know a lot have talked about just how we have one of the loneliest generations.
Yeah.
And it's crazy when I think about it because not only is it tied to your identity, but also when you think about, man, just simple things like, especially once you leave college and whatnot, it's like a lot of friends, you'll see them on Facebook, you'll see the families, you'll see the kids, but it's like when you think about it, it's like, man, I haven't literally seen this person physically in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and when you do, you're like, you might have a great text feed, but then all of a sudden you're like, how do I talk to this person? I don't know them.
Yeah, and then another thing is like, you are literally seeing somebody's highlights. And that's another thing about it. So when it comes to the true reality of where a person really is mentally, like we were just talking about, just what's really going on in their life, you're not going to know. It's not like anybody gets on there and is like, hey, guys, I just went through a divorce.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't show the football play where you got smacked.
Yeah, nobody's showing. Yeah,
you show
nobody's showing that play.
Right?
Yeah, I'm showing my biggest hits. I'm not showing the time I got juked, the time I got ran over.
Exactly.
I'm leaving that alone. So yeah, there's so many components of it, man, that are so damaging and really don't paint the true reality of where somebody really is. And I think right now, for me, one of the things that I really try to do, especially with those in my circle and those who I have a relationship with, is really try to be intentional just about reaching out and just asking questions like, hey, how are you? How are things going? And maybe they may not open up to me in that moment, but at least they know that I care and we're establishing that genuine connection, which I think is super important. And then just taking the time to step back, man, from all the content and from the social media world and just asking yourself those real questions. Like, why are you on? I'll ask myself, what's your main goal for being on here? You know, why are you posting this? What's the intentions behind this? Because you can very easily get caught up in a situation where you're literally trying to feed ego by posting this, or you're trying to get validation, or you're trying to seek a sense of self-worth by creating this. And so I think taking that step back, man, and just asking yourself, what's your mission for doing social media, for posting this, can really go a long way.
Yeah, and that leads into like my next question. In a world that's kind of, like you're talking about, really surrounded by social media and encouraged to be online, how do you make a really personal mark on people? Yeah.
Once again, it goes back to what I said about just being clear on your mission. You know, who is my target audience? Who can I best reach based off my experiences and my knowledge and where I'm trying to go, my vision? Who can I best reach, and what is my intention for doing this? Is it to serve? Is it to impact? Is it to educate someone? So I think as long as you stay clear on those things, it really helps you not to get jaded and not to be influenced by all the noise is what I call it. There is so much noise on social. I mean, whether it's, hey, you got to do real estate to get to 7 figures. Everybody's about 7 figures, 8 figures, or you got to do stocks, or you got to do this, or, you know, everybody has an opinion now. So you really have to be clear on who you are, what you stand for, who you're trying to impact. And that takes work, you know, that takes time. And you have to also be willing to revisit that as well, too, because it's very easy. Like I said, once you're just in that world, for myself, even, I have to create content as an entrepreneur. I have to, you know, market what I'm doing in my services. So not getting caught up in comparing and all those different things.
I'm kind of thinking more about that. You're talking about making an impact and really knowing your audience. You've written 2 books. I'd love to hear more about like the thought process that went into that, and really just how you hope that mark will be made.
Yeah, man. It was definitely a process. And actually, I didn't have any intentions to write a book when I started. I started writing my first book literally after I got cut from the Tennessee Titans. So I was back home for about 8 months. Wow. And I was just starting my process of really learning about who I was, my identity, and how I could provide value to the world, and who I was outside of my jersey. And through that process is when I started journaling, started reading a lot of books about mindset, about leadership, about, you know, just personal development. And I started journaling just to start to better understand who I was and reflect on all of my experiences.
Agents, right?
Yeah, this is Free Agent. So I wrote Free Agent while I was a free agent.
That's awesome.
And I kind of had the epiphany, man, that so many people, so many of us in life are going to go through that moment where we're a free agent. And it may be when we get fired from a job. It may be after a divorce. And now, you know, that person that's always been in your life, now you're no longer with them. And so you have to rediscover who you are without that person, or without that business, or without that job, or your empty nester. You see what I'm saying? There's so many transferables to life. And so I really use that experience that I went through to relate it to that experience that we all go through, navigating times of transition and challenges, and what we learn through those challenges that really help us to understand what matters most in life.
Yeah, like how do you navigate when everything you know changes?
Exactly. And one of the things I realized is, like we talked about self-confidence and even things like self-motivation and humility, but it's very easy to be confident when your bank account looks good and when you have that title. Like when I could say, oh, I'm with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
Or for some people is, oh, I got a PhD and I got, you know, I'm a CEO of this. But when you can no longer say that, are you still confident in yourself? That's true self-confidence. So that's one of the things I talk about in the book. Yeah, it's easy to be motivated when you're going into a good situation or your relationship's going well, but can you still stay motivated when all those things are not looking good and when you're in a dark place?
Yeah, that's something my dad, and something you've also taught me a lot of. It's just where do you find your worth? And I mean, this comes a lot into your faith. Like how, if you find your worth in, like for me, my ability to take photos or my ability to create a great podcast.
Right.
Well, there's going to be a day when I'm not going to be able to hold a camera as well as I can now. Or I'm not able to keep up with technology as it comes out. And where am I going to find my worth when that happens? And you start to look towards like just the Lord and how your relationship is with him.
Definitely.
I know you said, was Mark Rick the one that brought you to the Lord, or how are you?
No, so I definitely grew up in the church and everything, but it's one thing to grow up in the church and to kind of be fed that fed your faith. And it's another thing to actually go through life and live that faith.
Yeah.
Because life will life you. You know, I say life be lifing.
Life be lifing.
Life be lifing.
Hashtag life be lifing, guys.
Yeah. Life be lifing. So like when you go through things, that's when you find out like if you really have that faith. Like when I had to go 8 months and I had to train every single day for 4 hours and not know if I was gonna get a call or not, and if I was ever gonna play the game of football or not, but I still had to go out there and like do all the work up by myself in an empty facility and just had to believe that call was going to come. That's some faith. That's some faith. And it's a battle.
Discipline.
Yeah. Because
trust. You're trusting that the Lord's going to provide.
Yeah. I had to say, God, hey, if you want me to play again, it's on you. I'm just going to put the work in and I'm going to not just wait, but I'm going to work while I wait.
It's a great way to practice what you preach is being humble and knowing like, hey, my skill comes from the Lord, and this is something that I understand that, I mean, really it's up to him whether or not I continue to play. But because it's up to him, because I trust him, I'm going to continue to practice and continue to put those steps forward to make sure that I'm where I need to be.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, like one of the most powerful things that I did was, I thought about, okay, God, I'm in this position now. But what other abilities and talents do I have? And I think a lot about, the story of the parable of talents. And I don't know if you know that story, but just how, the master gives his servants different skills, different talents. One takes or one gets 2, one gets 4. I ain't going to go into the specifics, but basically they take what they have and they multiply it. And so for me in that moment where I'm at one of my lowest points in life, I'm thinking about how can I take where I've been and multiply that? How can I take my past experiences, whether it's football, whether it's, speaking to young kids or whatever it is, and multiply that into something and use where I'm at and not let it define me. And that was one of the most powerful moments in my life and what put me on the trajectory for entrepreneurship and the speaking and the coaching that I do now. It's just not telling myself that defeating story, but a liberating, empowering story in that moment where I could have just laid down basically and say, woe is me. I said, man, how can I use what I have even this moment
to make a mark?
Wow.
Yeah. How can I impact somebody with where I'm at right now? And I don't think enough of us do that when we face challenges. Like think about somebody who you can impact, who's going to go through that exact same moment. Right. And that's why I realized, a lot of the challenges we face in life are not even about us. It's something that is equipping us so that we can be able to teach and impact somebody else,
or something we don't even have control over.
Exactly. Sometimes, it's something you don't have control over. It could be for your own protection. If things had gone my way, if I had that 10-year career that I want to have, who knows? I may not even be able to sit down here with you all and articulate my thoughts. So I think about that all the time, how certain things that don't go our way are at times an act of grace.
Or a gift from the Lord.
On our behalf, exactly, that we don't even realize.
Yeah.
That relationship that doesn't work out, that business that doesn't work out, that person that doesn't say yes, that sometimes it's our own protection.
That's good stuff. That's powerful.
Yeah, man.
And it's so hard. It's hard for particularly a younger person, I think, when they're in the middle of that.
Yes.
to have that perspective. What you're talking about is a perspective. It's a mind. It's a change in a mindset, and it's so difficult. I know,
man,
it's so hard for some to see that when they're in the middle of it.
Oh man, I can't tell you how tough that. It's easy for me to talk about now.
Yeah.
But man, when I'm, like I said, when I'm a free agent, I'm back home and I'm training day in and day out. I'm a good person. I'm trying to do right. I'm just trying to take care of my family.
Right.
And then I'm watching the games on Sundays. Like, man, I know I'm better than that dude.
Yeah.
Come on, guy. Like,
that's right.
Come on, man. Like,
see, I do that same thing, except I have nothing to back that.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, man, I
don't want to get in front of that dude.
Yeah, that's what makes it really tough, and especially this day and age of social media and whatnot, where you literally can pick up your phone and every scroll is a reminder of can be a reminder of what you don't have.
Right.
That makes it even tougher, and you really, like I said, it's a mindset.
Yeah.
And you got to protect your mind as well, because those thoughts will literally eat you alive, man, if you don't focus on the right things and look at what you have and count your blessings and track the wins, like I was talking about before.
Yeah.
I'm kind of shifting away just a little bit. When you heard the term "make you remarkable," and Neil brought this up to you, what did that mean to you?
Make you remarkable. That means to me, creating something out of nothing. Yeah, make your own remarkable. I mean, having that vision, and and like I said before, your circumstances may look nothing like that vision that you have, but truly having that belief, man, that I'm going to create this. I'm going to do something different that's never been done before, and I'm going to believe in it before anybody else does. And I'm just going to try. I don't know what the results are going to be, but I'm going to do this. Yeah.
That's really good.
Dang, it's so interesting how every person has a completely different answer, and it's always like a gut punch in the soul. You're just like, wow, that is powerful. And even kind of going off of that, what does the word remarkable mean to you?
Remarkable just means something out of the ordinary, something that where you take your ordinary, you add God to it, and His ability, and it makes it remarkable. Yeah.
Great answer.
Yeah. So, what's a thought that you would leave as we wrap up the day that you would want to leave? If out of all the folks listening to this and the message that you'd like to share, what's the one nugget, if they could take away, would be the most important in your mind?
I mean, the thing that comes to mind and the thing that I always try to communicate to people, and it's not anything complicated or profound, it's just keep going. Keep going. Like, this life is tough. It's ups, it's downs.
Don't
it's
quit.
Good days, bad days, but just keep going, keep learning, keep improving, keep reflecting, keep having grace. If you're doing the right things, and you are, and you're having that character, and whether it's with your children, like I said, I got a teenager, so sometimes it feels like, man, is she listening to me? And my efforts going in vain, or my work, sometimes even as a speaker, I'm like, man, is this message really the right message? Am I doing the right thing in my business? Am I leading people in the right way? But at the end of the day, I just tell myself, man, just keep going, keep taking it one day at a time, keep planting the right seeds. And it's like good. I truly believe, man, without a doubt in my heart and my mind, that good things are going to happen if you keep pressing forward and keep trusting and keep having faith.
Yeah, that's really great advice. I can't remember her name. There was a pediatrician, passed away a few years ago, but she lived to be into her 90s, and she had written books and was world renowned. But someone that I know, their kids went to her, and one of the things that she said, you may not think your kids at certain ages are listening,
right?
But they are. They're listening to every single word.
Yep.
And so I think that's what you're saying. It's not don't give up.
Yeah. Don't give up.
Keep the faith. Stay the course. And and that's stay faithful. Right.
That's it.
You want to stay faithful.
Faithful with you, man. I think about the greatest moments in my life were just those moments where I wasn't being acknowledged. I wasn't in the position that I thought I could be. And I just said, I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to strive to be the best Rennie Curran that I can be. And when I least expected it, that's when the breakthrough happened. That's when, people don't, like I said, we talk about the accomplishments and different things like that. But, like, man, every step of my career, high school, college, pros, it was always I had to wait weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and I had to just keep going. And I was that undersized guy, and somebody messed up, somebody got hurt, and then I got the opportunity, and I was ready because I didn't stop progressing. Yeah.
Well, one thing's for sure, you're not undersized anymore.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Seriously.
Yeah,
I know for a fact I'm going to come away from this and like take all of the little nuggets you've given us and just apply them to my life. Seriously, you are so wise beyond your years. Really,
thank you, man.
It's crazy.
Thank you.
And thank you again so much for sitting down with us and just sharing your wisdom.
No problem. It was an honor.
Thanks, Rennie.
Yeah.
Always good to see you, my friend.
Yes, sir. You as well.
All right.